Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Reboot, the Business Growth and Recovery webinar brought to you by the City of Sydney. I'm Fleur Brown from the Australian Retailers Association. A bit of a surprise appearance today. Rebecca Campbell is out this week. She's having a minor operation and she said to let you know it's nothing serious. I'll be hosting today and Rebecca will be back with you next week. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people, the traditional owners to the land in which much of us are meeting today, and their elders past and present. And because we are online and people are in different places, I also want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you all work today, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this meeting. Well, in a moment, I'll be introducing Karina May, the Head of Marketing at Plann, and Mark Baartse, a digital marketing consultant best known for shaping the marketing program for Showpo. But before we start, I wanted to share a little bit about my background. So I'm currently the Chief Industry Affairs Officer with the Australian Retailers Association, which is the national peak body for retailers. And prior to that, I ran the launch agency in which we looked after a number of businesses, startups, retailers and the like across marketing, advertising and public relations. And I've also worked quite closely with Rebecca Campbell previously on her similar programs and workshops. So if this is your first Reboot session, welcome. We've so far had 16 awesome events and some really great numbers showing up for these webinars. So welcome today. We've had some special events with Canva and Facebook, and in previous series we've run events on leadership and capital raising. We will share a link shortly to where you can check out the videos from all the past events which are in the chat. And thank you again to the City of Sydney for hosting these fantastic programs. A reminder that next week in the final Reboot session, we'll be looking at podcasts and books as platforms for business owners to build their brands. In the format for today, we're going to have a presentation from Karina first and then Mark, and then they'll speak for about 10 minutes each about digital marketing strategy. And then we have two case study businesses from the City of Sydney who are going to ask questions of Mark and Karina on how to improve their digital marketing tactics. Today we have Jackie and Alex from eStudio in Chippendale, which is a hairdresser, and James from the Foxhole, a small bar in the Sydney CBD who's recently launched some virtual experiences, and they are our case studies today, so we look forward to hearing from them shortly.
Thank you, Rebecca, and hello everyone. Welcome to our Reboot seminars for 2021. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of our land, part of the oldest living culture on earth, and I pay my respects to their elders. I also acknowledge the people of the many nations who live in our city. And I'd also like to welcome the many local experts participating in the Reboot series and sharing their knowledge with our small businesses and startup community. Last year, at the height of the pandemic, the City surveyed our business community to learn what you need to survive and to recover from the damage brought about by COVID. In response to what you told us, we launched the Reboots webinars to equip you with the skills and strategies that will help you thrive in these challenging times. So thank you for your interest in attending today. And I'll leave you with Rebecca and our local experts to advise you on how to strategize and plan for growth in this ever-changing economic environment.
So let's get started. I'm going to introduce Karina May first. Karina is a strategic, data-driven marketer with more than 10 years' experience working with bootstrapped businesses on both client and agency side, with a broad portfolio across both tech and e-commerce. She's worked with brands including Showpo, Storage King, Pet Circle and Coco Republic to drive, just to name a few, to drive business growth and deliver measurable results. Karina, over to you.
Thanks, Fleur. And thank you everyone for having me today and for spending this lunch hour if you're in Sydney with us. So I'll share my screen now. All right, so hopefully you can see my screen. So today, thank you so much, Fleur. I think you probably covered my summary, so I'll jump right in because we don't have too much time. But I am Plann's Chief Marketing Officer. And Plann is a business Instagram tool, so a schedule and social media suite. It's available on desktop, iOS and Android. And it was actually started by Christy Lawrence, who is based in Sydney, and a completely bootstrapped tool. And it's now used by 3 million small businesses and brands globally in around 220 countries. So I thought I'd just give you a brief overview firstly before we deep dived into some strategies that you can use to grow your business on Instagram. So some features of Plann. Plann actually auto posts your social media to Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, which is obviously a huge time saver if you are a small business. You can set up a customized brand marketing calendar, and we'll talk about that in a second, how social media shouldn't just be looked at in isolation and how it works with your other channels for optimizing your growth. Plann has a whole range of done-for-you launch strategies and industry strategies. So rather than you just popping up any old posts, you can post with purpose and have some strategy around, you know, your weekly, daily posts. We have 50+ industry strategies. So everything from, you know, hairdressers to bars, where we actually will give you content prompts of sorts of things that you can post to encourage interaction when you do have a small team. Media management, so you can pop all your images in there. First comments, so which is perfect for your hashtags, and we can get into more detail around the number of hashtags and that sort of thing coming up and to increase visibility. You know, and we also integrate with Canva, and I know Canva has been a speaker in this series a few weeks ago. So there's a seamless integration there where you can create your assets in Canva and bring them directly in Plann to post on your social media. So that's just a bit of an overview about the tool that I work for and love. So yeah, hopefully you can check it out at some point, and we do have a discount code that we will be sending out. So as I touched on, social media is incredibly powerful for small business growth, but it's just one piece of the marketing puzzle. So if you are an e-commerce store or you're selling directly on socials, it's obviously amazing for making sales. And I think after this presentation, we'll be sharing a guide on how to set up your social media, your Instagram and Facebook directly for sales. So if you have a super visual product, socials is amazing for that. But social media works best when integrated with an overall marketing plan. So rather than just posting on socials and not thinking about the next step after that, what you do want, you know, where you want your customer, what you want them to do next. So a marketing plan should include all channels and just not be looking at social just as in isolation. So at Plann, we do talk about a marketing mix. So making sure that you're offering an opportunity for your consumers to interact with you in different places, not just on social, and understanding where your ideal target audience might be. If they are on socials, where else might they be? They might be searching the web for your business. They might be, you know, at the end of an email. So working out exactly what channels you want to include in your marketing mix in addition to your socials, will help you get the maximum impact out of that. So rather than talking about the number of hashtags, and as I said, we can go into detail with that, especially in Q&A. It does vary per industry you're in, but really social media starts with the basics and getting the foundations right and defining your target audience. That will then flow into the sort of content that you do want to be posting. If you do understand your target audience just across all of your digital marketing, it will better help all of your platforms. So the way that you can do that is obviously consider the demographic of your ideal target audience, their goals, aspirations, fears, their hobbies and interests, their job title and income. Ideally, that information you can get from Google Analytics if it's connected to a website, or if you're running paid social media ads, so Facebook and Instagram, you should be able to get that data directly from there. And that obviously, you know, is skewed a bit younger when we're looking at social media, but it gives you a good idea of who you are targeting, and that helps you create content more with purpose rather than just posting any old thing for the sake of it because you know that you need to push out something on your Instagram. So each channel, you should define the goal and the success metrics. So as I said, unless you are an e-commerce business, you know, and you're selling, maybe you're a fashion company, Instagram is obviously amazing for that because it's highly visual and shopping. A lot of the time, social media is more, the goal is around generating product or company awareness or brand awareness rather than a direct sale. It's a one touch point in a larger funnel to make that sale. I used to consult actually to a leather jacket company, and there was 70 touch points, for example, before they made a direct sale, and social made up about half of those, but it wasn't the end point for sales. So they might have ended up purchasing directly from the website, but social media had, you know, played a huge role in that. But it's hard to then attribute the direct sale to social media. That's why it's important to understand what the goal is of what you're doing, and also the next step. After you've posted that social post, what is the ideal journey for your customer? And that will help you, I guess, discover what channels are worth investing more time in if you work out, you know, what the goal is of each channel and the success metric. So you might have heard of these already, but setting SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, timely. So it's all well and good to say, you know, my post got 60 likes, but what did that actually mean? So, you know, when it comes to social, the more specific, the better. So a platform like Instagram, the objective would be to use posts and stories to educate your target audience about the damage plastic and ocean causes. The channels needed there is Instagram. So if you have a post and you want them to take that next step, you obviously need them to go somewhere. So in that case, you will need an optimized landing page. And you know you'll be successful if you have 10,000 signups from Instagram to clean up local beaches. So the more specific, the better. Obviously, not every post on social is going to be that specific, but ultimately when you're looking at your overall strategy, you want to know what the outcome that you're set to achieve is. So looking at top social media tactics, and so how Instagram works with other channels, it's really important to get clear on your audience and goals to post with purpose, to show up consistently. And I think in the Q&A, we'll probably go into more details as what consistently is. The algorithm is always changing, and it does really depend on your resources. But, you know, making sure that, you know, you are setting the strategy and adhering to that. As I said, Plann does have a whole range of industry strategies. An example on the side there, the blogger strategy, where there's some content prompts and ideas of what you can post weekly. And then obviously look at your results to see how they're performing. And then you can start to customize your strategy based off the best performing posts and do more of the posts that are performing well. Sounds very basic, but it's that posting with purpose. As I mentioned before, setting up social media for shopping is something that, like, you need a business account to do that. Most businesses will have a Facebook business and Instagram business account. It's good to check that to make sure that you don't just have a personal account with your Instagram, because there are a lot of new features and capabilities that are opening up with Instagram. There's constant, you know, new releases and updates all the time. Use social media to drive traffic to your landing pages. Again, it sounds basic, but there's no use in having a post and having a description with a call to action, and then nowhere for them to go to take the next step. As much as possible, you do want to meet your customer where they are. So if they've come to your socials for information, you want to provide that to them, but then you also want to give them the next step. And to distribute blog content. So, you know, if you are producing content out there, social media is a great way to push that out to reach new audiences. Paid ads, I know a session has been on Facebook ads, so I won't go into too much detail. I'm talking more today about organic strategies. But yeah, definitely, you know, if you are wanting to take it a step further, you can target your website visitors through ads, growing your email list, and engaging influencers to promote your brand. And I'll just quickly touch on those two things. So socials and email, obviously I have a lot of experience in email. It's one of my big loves, but growing your socials by running a giveaway on your Instagram is a great idea. You do want to track the value of that lead. Often giveaways can, you know, encourage those tire kicker type customers that might not ever go on to purchase. but making sure that you're tracking your email sign-up source. So you want to understand where those people are coming from so that you can then do make a effort to do more of those things. And then ensure it's not a dead end when you are collecting that email address. Make sure that you're communicating with them. So it's all well and good to say your database is, grown to 1,000, but what are you doing with that list? Again, resources are quite lean, but at the very minimum to start sending a monthly newsletter. But even better would be to set up a nurture workflow, which means, you are welcoming them into your community, letting them know who you are, and starting those trust, like, know steps. And personalizing where possible, which is, beyond just first name, but including some information as to where, what they might be looking for based off the source that they've signed up. And then quickly just to touch on socials and influencer marketing, that's something huge that we use at Plann. So we utilize comments and DMs to build rapport with a lot of our planners, to help identify who is someone that we might, like to work with to help grow Plann. I think when we're talking about influencer marketing, it's very important to be very clear about what the offer exchange is, whether it's contra or one-off, an ongoing commission. Creating an affiliate kit is a really great way of getting that information straight up there. And then obviously affiliate software, because it's no good if you don't understand the data of like what the contribution that this partner might be making to your business and whether or not, it's a great financial decision. And to create a sense of community. So by returning the partner support, so it's not just a one-sided relationship, but supporting, at Plann, we support our creators by featuring them on our blog and that sort of thing. So that's just, a little bit of an overview. So that was a very speedy walkthrough, but just, to recap, you do need to use social media as part of larger channels, and you can create your entire marketing plan in Plann. And we have a discount code that will be emailed out after this for 20% off all plans. But obviously, I will stop sharing my screen now and we'll have opportunity for questions later.
Thanks so much, Karina. Lots to digest there, and we'll be hearing from you again shortly. I'm now going to introduce Mark Baartse, and one of the standout things in Mark's LinkedIn profile is his comment that insights beat ego, and I'm sure that he's going to be sharing quite a few of those insights with us today. Mark runs his own consulting firm and has for the last 2 years, where he helps digitally led companies and those struggling to be digital to grow sustainably. Prior to that, Mark was instrumental in growing one of our powerhouse Aussie retail and e-commerce brands, of course, Showpo, as their CMO for 3 years. He's lectured with ADMA and also worked in marketing roles with Microsoft and LexisNexis. Over to you, Mark.
Hey, Flo, thanks for the intro and thanks for warming up the crowd for me, Karina. There's some really good insights there and a lot of stuff you're definitely a lot better at than me. I am going to try and share my screen here. Okay, yeah, so we're talking about scaling up digital level marketing. And, the challenge with a presentation like this is, that, we've got a range of businesses here. Whoops, I keep going forward when I don't mean to. We've got a range of businesses here and, that can be challenging because everyone has different challenges and everyone has different kind of issues that they face. And so, some of the stuff I'll be talking about today will be quite generic. So you've got in Slack, you've got my website. Not that there's a lot of exciting stuff there. So we're just going to be talking about, 3 big buckets today. Talking about how we reach new customers online. So, as Karina very, very rightly said, any sort of marketing activity needs to be looked at holistically, that there's very few things that kind of work as a standalone thing. So it's kind of that's where, marketing is part art and part science. I spend a lot of my time in, Excel or Google Sheets mostly these days, analyzing data and looking at numbers, but there's still kind of that human element. You need to look at it. So it's balancing it. So we'll look at reaching new customers. We'll look at converting the, your website visitors and people online to customers, and how do we keep them coming back? So reaching new customers online. So there's kind of, there's lots of ways to do it, but the kind of the 3 biggest buckets that make up, the majority of the companies I see is we've got search. So we've got paid search, which is, primarily Google Ads, because Google have a whatever 96% market share or whatever it is today in Australia for search. And I think we all know what that is. That's when you go to Google and you search for something, and there's the ads up the up the top and sometimes down the bottom as well. And so generally with those things, you're paying per click. So every time someone clicks on your ad, you'll pay $2 or whatever it might be. Then you've got the challenge with paid search is, and particularly for smaller businesses, is that it can be a little bit on the tricky side to set up. And if you only want to spend like, $200 a month, or perhaps, if you're in a niche business and you're only targeting a very tight geography, you're only targeting people who live in the actual city of Sydney, or just people in Camperdown or whatever it might be, then, you're very limited in how much you can spend. And that does allow you to have the tools to kind of put that geographic overlay. So you're only showing those ads to people in the area you specify. And then there's also SEO. So when people go and search for, a hairdresser near me, for example, that's making sure that you appear up the top there. Now, SEO is great in that you're not paying for it, but it does require a lot of work. And I'm kind of going to mix and match SEO and content marketing here. So look, SEO is, I've got 10 minutes to talk about something. I used to teach a full day workshop just on this one point. So, but a lot of it is about creating the right relevant content, and being able to understand and create content that is relevant to your customers. Social, Karina's talked a lot about that, but all of these, all aspects of social, there's things where you get it for free and things where you pay. So with Facebook, you can run Facebook ads, and you can run Instagram ads, but you can have an Instagram account, which is what Karina was talking about a lot. And so there's always that balancing act, and obviously it's a lot easier to pay, but it's also involves paying, which is always something we don't like doing as a general rule. Generally with Facebook, I think most people know this these days, but organic reach on Facebook is close enough to zero, so it's probably not something you want to look at. And then there's stuff like TikTok, Snapchat, Pinterest, there's all the other things there that we're all aware of. Generally, unless you've got a very young audience, I'm not seeing a lot of companies have a lot of success with those channels. Some are, but yeah, probably a good overarching point here is that not every channel is right for every business. There's no company where I'm going to say you have to do everything. That just that's not a thing. So it's about understanding, is your business the sort of thing that people are searching for? Influence, which Karina talked about. If your business is like a local business and you're only servicing like a small geographic area, then influencers can be challenging, because the chances are the majority of that influencer's followers don't live in that area. And so, you're working with this, influencer with, I don't know, like 30,000 followers on Instagram or something. They might only have like 1,000 living in your area. And so then you've got to think about how impactful it is, and if it's worth investing the time in that. And then there's, I'm not really going to talk about this too much with display and video. There's YouTube and Google Display Network and programmatic stuff. That's probably getting, probably slightly more advanced. And so I'm going to kind of skip over that stuff, but very happy to discuss it in the, I think we've got question time later. So submit your questions, and if someone's got questions about that, love to talk about it. So this is something that I see people not putting enough attention to, is converting your visitors to customers. So generally when you're doing, like Karina was rightly saying, you're Instagram, you want to drive people to your website, you want to drive people to sometimes social, but usually to your website. The big challenge I see is that people don't spend enough time getting the people who are on their site to do what they want them to do. So this is the stuff I see all the time, that people are not clear on who you are, what you do, what you want your customers to do, and why they should do it, and making those things really, really easy to do. And this is something I spend a fair bit of time working on, in my work, is how do we make this easy to do? I think we've all had that experience where you visit a website, it's just like, I don't know if this is for me, I don't know exactly what they do. I mean, you might be vaguely aware of it, but it's not enough to really appeal to you and connect with you and motivate you to take that step, whether it to be, to visit the store or sign up, generate a lead online or make a purchase online, or whatever your business goal is through your website. And then you got to keep them coming back. So email is like a great channel to do that. If you can get people with email address, then that's a really good way to keep in touch with them, and to keep them coming back. And usually when people start talking about retention, email is typically the first channel they talk about. Social is a really good channel as well, both acquisition and retention. If again, depending on the business, but if you're in a business that's like a very visual type business, you're a hairdresser, for example, then, you probably want people, to follow you on social so they can see your great work. And then, when it comes time for their next, treatment, haircut, whatever it might be, they saw that post yesterday and you're staying top of mind, you're staying present. There's a concept in marketing called mental availability. And that helps, how likely is your brand to come into mind at the point that they are interested in purchasing. Oh, my hair's looking a bit rough, I need to book an appointment with the hairdresser. Does that mind, does your store come in mind at that point? And of course, great service. But I'm hoping that people in business know that. But if you don't provide good service, people are not going to come back. I've got a bonus slide in here, which is very, very in line with what Karina was saying. Is it's really important to understand your numbers. And I didn't include this in the summary because people get scared off by this. I spend a lot of my time working on this stuff, and it's what I see all the time is you see business people come and they say, oh, well, I've run this campaign, I've just spent X thousand dollars on Facebook or running an event or whatever, and I'm not sure if it worked. It's like, well, what was your goal? I don't know. It's like, well, I can't tell you if it worked then. So a lot of growing a business is about really understanding what your objectives are. Karina gave some great examples about being really clear about what you're trying to achieve through Instagram, for example, and how do you measure that? And it's not necessarily the most fun, the most exciting part of what a lot of people think marketing is, but honestly, it's probably the most important thing. It's something that I spend a lot of my time on. Like, probably close to half of my time is spent on understanding the data and understanding what success looks like and measuring success. And I think that's it. I think we're back over to you, Fleur.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Mark. That was really interesting, and well done condensing your life's work into 10 minutes. Okay, we've got both Mark and Karina joining us again, along with two case studies, two businesses. So we've got Jackie Arnold and Alex Abadia, the business owners of ES Studio Galleria. And this is a hair and beauty salon in Chippendale. They've been in business for 10 years and they specialise in colour. And they've also created an experience based around coming into their studio. And just for context, in terms of their marketing efforts, they've just gone back into collaborating with a PR agent and social media person to try and get back to where they were pre-COVID. Over to you, Jackie and Alex, to take us through some questions that you've got for Mark and Karina.
Hi, how are you going? Thanks for having us.
Hi, everyone.
First up is Instagram. It's probably our main platform that we focus on and post, and it's really our showcase of what we do in the salon. And questions would be around that. How often should we be posting? Are stories more important these days? And how can we grow our followers?
Well, firstly, I guess this one's for me, Mark. So firstly, I went to check out your account and you guys are doing such an amazing job, like in terms of your reels and IGTV, and you've even got your highlights all sorted for stories. So well done with that, because I think this is the thing, there's just so much asked of small business owners these days with like every new feature. And I will say, like Instagram, and you probably have seen this with the numbers that you're seeing with your reels, that they are favoring people that jump on the new features. So it's kind of like if you just keep doing what you were doing a couple of months ago, you're not going to see the same results. So in terms of the number of times to post a week and that sort of thing, like honestly, it is guided, I think, by your resources and capacity firstly, because I think there's no point trying to be everywhere daily and not taking that time, as I said in my presentation, to think about the purpose. So that is a guide. But definitely if you were to have a mix of grid posts, reels and stories, at a minimum, it would be good to show up, you know, a couple of times a week. I think stories, you know, ideally, it would be great to always have an active story so that people are searching for that real estate, that's top real estate, and you're always appearing. And in terms of, I think like you're at almost close to 5,000 followers. Yeah. So I know, and you're using Instagram definitely in the right way in terms of using it as a portfolio. I know that you've had some fun with reels before and afters, which is perfect, like for beauty industry, showing that before and after. It's so visual and you're like packaging up in a fun way. I think when you get to 10,000 followers, you have access to the swipe up link where you can take people from, you know, your Instagram content onto your website where they can physically make a booking with you. I was excited to share a hack that I'm not sure if you're aware of, that you can actually have a swipe up link to IGTV. So you can't put a swipe up link to an external website, but you can put a swipe up link to Instagram content, so an IGTV. IGTVs have to be a minute long, but what you can actually do is film, you know, a piece to camera of like, welcome into the salon, and put the link to make a booking actually in the comments of the IGTV. So you can do that, or even just create a graphic in Canva that is a still for 1 minute with the information, so where people can go, so that when you are sharing your reels or stories, you can actually take people and to complete the action that you're wanting them to do, which I'm guessing is to come in. Yeah. So obviously, at the same time, it's great to try and grow your followers. And I think posting constantly is a great way to do that, as well as hashtags and making sure that you are making that content really work and as visible as possible with a combination of hashtags.
The main thing for us is obviously knowing that nothing's set in stone and just keep adapting to all the little changes and whatever they're offering and how it changes and evolves.
100%. And like, it sounds like you guys are, you know, checking your analytics as well. So, you know, you can get those analytics directly in Instagram, or with Plann as well, you can get analytics, and you can also get when your audience is most online. So you can then start to, it is like, chicken and egg, because once you start posting, then they might be there. And then I think the other important thing is not posting and running away, post and dump. So, you know, you should be, once you post, be online and available to answer questions that your community might have for about half an hour. And that's also, I mean, look, you can obviously waste your whole life away on social media. We all know that. But having that allotted time, especially when you post, so rather than thinking about it as a 5-minute job, think about, say, I've got half an hour to post and engage, including engaging with, you know, maybe an influencer that you might want to work with, or, you know, so spending that time with your community as well. Again, to surface the content, especially if you're putting effort into making those fun reels. Like, I know a lot of work goes into that. So you want to really, and also don't be scared of repurposing content. Just because you've posted it doesn't mean that people have seen it. So
not everyone's seen it.
And you look at, you know, obviously your impressions versus your followers, and you'll know that. So don't be scared of, just show that it's evergreen content, show it over and over, and diversify your platform. So not just Instagram, why not cross post to Facebook or,
And would you say be safe to do it over a 3-month period where you just keep posting it here and there?
100%.
3 months.
Yeah, I mean, if it's evergreen, which it means that the content doesn't date. So I mean, it's different if you know you have a seasonal spring special or something, and
totally.
But 100%. Yeah. Just keep sharing it. Like, you've done the hard work of creating that fabulous content. Like, get it out there.
Get it out. Yeah, totally. No, that's good. Then we also wanted to start tapping onto the Google AdWords, which is something. So basically, we started, the beginning of the business was mainly like building up the backbone of the business and sort of not concentrating on the marketing side of social media, but then sort of building up a loyal client base, which we've done that. And obviously 10 years later, bang, you know, a few years back, we started concentrating on the whole social media side. So now delving in a little bit deeper into it also, Google AdWords. Wanting to understand that a little bit more. I suppose I think where I get confused with sort of the AdWords and then Google My Business Google Maps, Google Search. Like there's so many different elements. So we're trying to sort of work out how to start with that.
Yeah, no, I feel your pain. It is pretty confusing. I mean, I get confused by this stuff sometimes as well, to be honest. It's and it just keeps getting more and more confusing the deeper you get. So I feel your pain, and it's particularly hard for small businesses because there is a certain barrier to entry, and with bigger businesses, they often will retain an agency or something like that. But for someone, a small business in a niche with, I think you've got 2 locations like you guys. You're not going to be spending, 20 grand a month on Google Ads, right?
Yeah.
So there's no point getting an agency in at that point.
No, and that's where I think we're sort of a bit confused in trying to work out some sort of budget or starting to put a price on that sort of hit word,
Yeah, look, I don't specifically know what the cost is for, I guess broadly speaking, hairdressing and beauty treatment type keywords. But let's say, you're probably going to pay a couple of dollars a click, I'm guessing.
Yep.
And so what you probably need to be doing is tracking that, and this is where it starts getting messy. I had a look at your website. You've got like that online booking service. I'm hoping that they allow you to put like tracking codes at the end of a booking. Because what you want to do is you want to say, okay, we've got 50 clicks. How many bookings did that convert into?
Yeah, all right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, let's just keep the math simple. Let's say you've got 100 clicks. You want to know how much am I prepared to pay for a customer?
Yep.
Your average, let's say your average treatment is $200. I'm making up.
Yep.
Your average treatment is $200, and your average customer does, you see at least 10 times.
Yep.
You start thinking, what am I prepared to pay? Is it 20? Is it 50? 100? Is it 200?
Yeah, maybe.
And then you can get the math pretty simple. You're paying $2 a click. You get 100 clicks. If you get 3 conversions out of that, you're what's that? $66 a conversion. And I can't tell you that's right for your business, but that's what you know.
No, I get the maths in that though. Yeah.
But having said that, I'm not sure. While I don't think it's a bad thing, I don't know if it's the thing I would be focusing on for a business like yours.
Okay.
If you can do it, if you've got the guts and the time to give it a crack, I'd certainly recommend it. But social makes a lot more sense for a business like you, I think.
Cool. The visual part.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know if you consider like even stuff like boosting Instagram posts, because most Instagram posts only reach a fairly small percentage of your followers. I don't know if you've tried that and had any success with that sort of thing. Yeah.
We might just move along to the final question, if that's all right. Just conscious of time. So, thanks for fantastic insight.
So we have about 5,000 emails in our newsletter database. How often should we be sending out newsletters not to be spammy?
Well, I think, the answer for that is just you, again, look at the data. So you'll be able to see when you start. Look, I would say monthly for a business like yours, just to keep top of mind. And then I think about the frequency of how often people visit you. I would assume, 4 times a year or so. I don't think that that's too aggressive, but then you can also just look at your open rates and see if like they're starting to dip, and that's where you can maybe have a look to see like maybe we are. I would say email newsletters are great, but if you can also set up a very basic onboarding for like a new client, because that's an opportunity, especially if they've had a great visit with you, a nice surprise and delight of like, thank you so much, with maybe some extra value adding care tips. Like, now you've come to visit us to, extend your color at this at home. And I think that will really help with retention, so that you're not just bringing people in and, they're never opening an email again, but you're getting them and continuing to nurture them via email while they're new and excited. So if you can set up, so normally I would say, for a business like yours, it would probably be a couple of emails within the first month, and then just maybe 3 more emails once per month. And so that's from the duration of their first visit with you, I think would be
cool. From the welcome to it.
Yeah.
Cool.
So you want to keep in touch with them until they're ready to make another appointment, and make sure they're making their second appointment with you. By the second appointment, if you do a good job, I'm pretty sure you'll retain them as a loyal client. So
Cool. Love it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thanks,
All right, that's a wrap with Jackie and Alex. Thanks so much for bearing your business soul to us today. I hope you got some great insights from that. I certainly did. So we're going to move on to our second case study now. We've got James, who's the CEO of the Foxhole, and also Box Bar. James, thanks for joining us. The Foxhole is a small bar in Sydney CBD. It's got 55 seats near Wynyard Station, and you specialise in gin, whiskey and wine. Sounds awesome. I'll be along there. During COVID, you had to shut down like the rest of the industry, and you created a virtual gin experience, which sounds amazing. You sent out gin packs and delivered gin experiences online. And over 2020, you sold that to 5,000 people across the country, which became a big part of your business. Great to see some of that innovation coming through in COVID. There hasn't been a drop-off that you expected after COVID, so you've created a new brand, Box Bar, to do virtual spirit experiences with packs that are sent out to customers. www.boxbar.com.au. Over to you, James, with your questions.
That was great. I thought I was going to have to like shamelessly self-promote there, and you've done that for me. Thanks. So my very first question is around cost of acquisition. So I guess this is an area that the Foxhole kind of had to learn from scratch 12 months ago, or nearly 18 months ago now, in that we didn't do very much online cost of acquisition tracking. It was kind of like brand advertising, and then all of a sudden we've become this sophisticated business where we're specifically trying to target exactly the right number for cost of acquisition, and we're achieving somewhere in the vicinity of $50 to $60, maybe sometimes $70 of acquisition across Facebook and Google AdWords predominantly at the moment. And I guess I'm after some ideas, tips, suggestions on how we might bring that down. Is there different channels we should be looking at? Is there conversion tips, those sorts of things?
Yeah, I might grab that one first. Are you heavier on Facebook or Google? Or?
Much heavier on Facebook. We've
okay.
tested both, but yeah, our Google is much more very specific keyword targeting and not very much display advertising or anything like that. So, and I think it's one of those, you're not going, I know what I'm going to do on Saturday. It's a gin experience. It's more of an incidental, like, oh, a gin experience. That's a cool idea.
Mm. Yeah, no, that would be my gut instinct, that you'd probably be more Facebook than Google. And just for people watching, correct me if I'm wrong, James, but when I say Facebook, I'm talking about Facebook for company, which includes Instagram. So when you say Facebook advertising, that means Facebook and Instagram advertising, just if people are getting confused.
And we do find that the Instagram and the other display networks are a bit more effective than Facebook's own network. So yes, it's very the Facebook network rather than just Facebook.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, actually. Most businesses, I find the opposite to be true, but it varies a lot from company to company. Yeah, so what I'd be looking at two things. So one is, I haven't seen your accounts or anything, but I'd be looking at the way of Facebook. I don't know, are you primarily buying on a conversions basis?
Yeah, primarily on conversions, purchase on the website.
Yeah, so what I'd be looking at is you can do some nurturing. So whether you can reach some people cheaper through, traffic. So for people who haven't run Facebook ads, this is when you create a Facebook ad, you specify what your objective is, and that makes a massive difference to how the Facebook algorithm operates. And so James basically saying conversions, which means it's expensive to reach for people, but they are people who are very likely to convert. And it does exactly do that. I'd be looking at also creating another campaign that gets a more of a reach campaign and drives them to your website. So you can perhaps use a traffic objective and then remarket to those people to get them coming to visiting. So you can reach for people cheaper, and then you can kind of push them down the funnel gradually. If that makes sense. So make them aware of you cheaply and then convert them using conversions and remarketing campaigns. Okay. So that's what we're looking at. The other thing I'd be really looking at is actually having, as I mentioned in my mini prezzo earlier, looking at your website, looking at opportunities, because I'm looking at the Box Bar website primarily, and I think that the value proposition and the call to action is not really super clear to me. So I would suggest there's probably an opportunity, and if you double your conversion rate, then you halve your cost of acquisition. So spend less time looking at kind of the tools and the media, and spend more time looking at the customer experience, and actually talk to real customers and see how they're experiencing your brand and how they're experiencing your website.
That's really helpful feedback. The Boxbar website's about 4 weeks old at the moment, so
yeah, right.
The Foxhole website's slightly older than that. So
everything's a work in progress.
Yeah, indeed.
And can I just add to that? So you said you have 5,000 customers from Boxbar, so you have their email addresses. Have you tried a lookalike audience to get more of those types of people that have purchased from you?
So for the Foxhole users lookalike audiences, Boxbar, we don't have a huge 5,000 subscriber list, and we are operating the two businesses separately. So we've got opt-in. We're quite we're white. The white hat doesn't even cover it when it comes to
we're
to
a
the
white
way that we use it. We're very white hat. So Boxbar doesn't have opt-in for 5,000, but the Foxhole does, and so So yes, the Foxhole does use lookalike audiences, and look, that does translate in the cost of acquisition metrics that we're receiving between the two businesses, because the Foxhole's very good at converting customers and the Boxbar's not so great at the moment. But it's pretty easy to identify where we've got the opt-in and the audience and the engagement and the brand recognition coming from.
And just for everyone watching, so you can do a lookalike audience when you have 1,000 email addresses, but obviously, like, the more you have, like, the cheaper it's going to be for you. So the idea is to try and grow how many email addresses you have of your customers, so you can replicate them over and over again.
Completely off topic and not one of the questions that we were going to have a specific talk about, so I'm going to talk about it anyway. We're currently doing a specifically email list targeted exercise where we're giving away a subscription for the gin subscription, which is the next evolution of our gin experience, which is a kind of a scaled down version of that, but every month, and we're giving away that for 12 months and getting email address people to sign up to our email newsletter as part of that. Have you got any guide on what an email should cost? I mean, I only know from having done these in the past that, like, less than $1 is good, but is that, I don't know what good is as an industry level.
Well, I don't. So, I mean, I've seen some questions come through the chat about the iOS update. So I think, like, the cost of everything right now is unknown.
Yeah.
It's same. It does differ per industry what the benchmark is. Like, typically when I was running Facebook ads across the board for email addresses, I would say $2 to $3 per email address. But then, of course, it all comes down to what makes sense for your business and what's worthwhile. I mean, I did touch on my presentation. When you are doing promotions, you do have to be a bit wary of the quality of those. But there's, if you are tracking the source, you can follow them all the way through, and then that will help, dictate whether or not you run a similar promotion in the future, if you got value out of that. But it's great for awareness. So, great, tag your mates and, like, let's get this box. So,
absolutely.
Just jumping in as bad cop timekeeper, we've just got 5 minutes and 17 questions in the chat. So, okay. Keep going.
So my next question was about retention. Look, we're big on customer experience for the Foxhole and Boxbar. We go above and beyond and do things that you just wouldn't expect any other. I guess we want to wow our customers and want them to go crazy. I would never expect that to have happened, and they just did it without even thinking. But is there anything else that we can think about that would help our primarily digital business now, which it wasn't 18 months ago, to retain customers and get them to come back and have more experiences with us another time?
So the thing I was going to say just about this is, I know that referral reviews is a huge part of, obviously, digital business, especially starting out and making sure that people are reviewing. Do you feel like you're getting enough reviews at the moment from post experience?
So the Foxhole, very much so. We've got, I think it's the rarity that we don't get 5-star reviews, and we're getting 2, 3, 4 a day. We do a weekend. We'll do a 60 experiences on a Saturday, and we'll get 5, 6, 7 people review from those. 10% is pretty good. And it's a very rare occasion that we don't get 5 stars and glowing reviews and a bunch of photos. So I think the Foxhole does that. But getting reviews from a brand new brand for Boxbar is proving to be a slow and arduous task. But
So the one thing that I often introduce is there's 2 points that you can really ask for reviews. One is when they have made the booking with you, and I think people feel like, oh, that's too premature. They haven't actually had the experience, but they're excited. They can review you on how easy it was to make the booking. So asking for that review as well as like the post experience. And then it sounds like in terms of retention, you're already doing quite a lot of surprise and delight. So honestly, this is where I actually even hark back to like traditional mail. I have found recently to really surprise and retain is to pop something in the post if you have their address. Could be as simple as a handwritten card. With Plann, actually, we send feathers. It's just, you know, you just don't expect it, right? So we're so digital and so online, but it's just a cute little idea that you remember. But yeah, that is definitely the right timing. So like post their experience with you or post booking for retention.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually a really good idea. We've been doing some handwritten notes in our experience packs, sort of welcome to the journey, and they do. People take photos of them and pop them on Instagram, and
nice.
like, look what I got. Cool. But like a paper mail asking for a review, that's fantastic. That's actually really cool.
We might have to stop it there, James. I'm sorry, we just got 10 minutes left for 17 questions.
No worries. The only other thing was like a 30-second one was about referral. Is there like hint, tip side of things? And I know there are some questions that were about referrals as well. So we might cover off on that.
I think it sounds like, I mean, there's lots of all sorts of fancy technical stuff you can do around referrals, but the best thing is creating amazing experience, which it sounds, you know, surprise and delight, like both you and Karina have been saying. You know, if people are really wowed, then they'll tell their friends about it.
And one other thing, give and get. So give them something, they get something. So give and get works. $10, yeah.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Awesome questions. And we're going to go on to speed Q&A. So we've got 17 questions. 18. Okay, let's see how we go. I'm just going to, don't be polite. Just jump straight in. Question from Cameron. Would you have any advice for business starting from absolute scratch? Of course, they have a website with limited income for paid marketing. What would be the most essential starting points to grow social and email marketing? 30 seconds each, go.
You can go, Mark.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think if you've got no money whatsoever, it's going to take a long time to grow because, you know, you're basically reliant on Instagram and, you know, SEO and maybe email to some extent as well. But yeah, I'd be looking at, depends on the business, you know, but generally you need to do some sort of paid stuff if you want to grow at something more than a glacial speed. Unfortunately, that's just the reality of life.
From the beginning, utilize your current networks and be shameless about it. Like, honestly, like you have to let people know you're doing this thing. They're you know.
Awesome. Okay, a question from Emma. Do you have any tips on how you can turn an audience of casual Instagram lurkers into people who are willing to actually buy from you? They're in the coaching course industry.
Unlimited offers.
Yeah, scarcity works well. And yeah, nurture via email. As soon as you get the email address, continue touch point.
Brilliant.
Yeah, good one, yeah.
Okay, from Anonymous, could you touch on the upcoming iOS 15 update? So I got my glasses on there. Yeah, 15 updates, and what this will mean for tracking our email efforts and keeping our lists engaged, segmented, and actually arriving in our customers' inboxes.
Yeah, look, I'm still getting across that. I mean, that was only announced from like a week and a half ago or something, quite last week or the week before or something like that. So I can't give you a good answer. We'll still be getting data from non-iOS things, non-iOS people, so we can use it as like proxy measures. But having said that, you know, how do we segment our iOS users? Honestly, I don't have any answers to that. It's too soon.
Nothing from you, Karina?
No, nothing to add there. I could talk about email deliverability for 5 hours, but I won't.
Oh, okay. So could I.
All right, next one. Anonymous, also, what are some of the best tools for measuring analytics outside of Instagram, etc.?
I mean, it depends which analytics you're trying to measure, but, you know, for your website, Google Analytics is the obvious one. I mean, that's used by even like, you know, billion-dollar companies are still using Google Analytics, you know, most of them, not all of them. So it's a really, really good product. But it depends, you know, there's no straight answer to it. It depends what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I think each software probably has more niche analytics for that platform, but for an aggregate, analytics is the best.
Okay, great. From Isabel, what is the best way to grow followers on Instagram? We are a very new business and looking for ways to grow our presence on social.
So I think posting regularly and consistently with purpose-led content, engaging with your audience and using hashtags. So we say changing up your hashtags and make it a tight set to do with the actual content type, to get more visible, and storing. Okay, slightly more complex. What are the ethics of gathering emails? When am I allowed to save emails? Do I need to ask if I can save their emails for newsletters, etc.? Yeah, definitely. So you need an opt-in. So GDPR is something that, Mark and I spoke about a lot at Showpo a few years ago, but definitely they need to implicitly say, yes, I agree to sign up. So often if you are collecting their email address from a purchase, you also need a little checkbox that says, yes, I want to sign up to email. And you can do what you want with that text normally, so make it enticing as possible for them to actually want to do that. Let them know that you're going to send them exclusive sales.
Okay, from Laura, what key ways can I use to discover who my ideal target demographics are?
I'll have a shot at that. Often that's a process of, in my experience, I'm curious to see what Karina says, it's a process of discovery, of testing something and then seeing who actually responds. I know a lot of new businesses tend to get that wrong. They think it's going to appeal. Like I was talking to someone this morning who said, they thought the product would appeal to like kind of young mums, but it's actually like mostly grandmas buying it. And, and that's fine. So they just got to pivot based on that. I think just, look, there's a whole bunch of very expensive research you can do. I'm assuming you don't have budget to do that sort of stuff. And even then it's pretty hit and miss, to be honest, very expensive research. So I would just do your best guess and then check to see if you are right. That's the important bit, check and pivot.
Okay. A question here similar to the first one. We've got any comments for ways to approach a new business and how to best garner interest if launching new to market? Anything to add there to that first question we got?
I think you also can't start too early. So start before your product's ready. Have a landing page, sign up, be the first to hear about it when we launch. That's where you can definitely start socials. You can, start posting, teasing, garnering interest that way. And again, from your network.
All right. Is it best to link all social posts to your website as in your own website? Socials can be taken down. Example, recent Facebook media blocking changes or constant algorithm changes.
Yeah, so definitely own channel. So social media isn't an own channel, your website is, so you have control over it. I would say not every post, but it definitely has a call to action, like what do you want them to do? It could be to comment on the post, but where possible, optimize your Instagram bio with maybe a link tree or link in bio with web links off to your own asset, which is very true. We don't have control over those platforms.
My favorite saying is be careful of building a house on rented ground.
Great, love it. Okay, so from Douse, I'm planning to open up my business, and basically Douse is asking how to not be boring with content, not be boring or vague.
There's a lot of stuff around that, and I love that you're even asking this question, because 99% of the content online is really, really boring and vague and not particularly useful. I would be a lot of it's common sense. It depends on what the goal of a content is. So, so content typically has a few goals. One can be to drive search traffic. One can be to, to increase people's awareness of your product. One is to, actually drive sales. And another one is to be kind of shared on social or linked to, by other websites, that sort of stuff. They're broadly speaking the main goals for content creation. So be really clear on what goal, and it's in practice next to impossible to have content that meets all those goals, and then really aim at. There are some tools around like what's called BuzzSumo that allows you to research successful content in your industry in the past. So you go and search for a keyword, whatever it might be, hair color treatments, and it will show you like really successful content in that space. But also go and look, if search might be a goal, go and look what is ranking and do something that is both better than and different than the top current content.
Awesome. Okay. How do I know the best time of day to post on each social media platform?
So how long is a piece of string? But, definitely look at your analytics. So as I said, like you can see your best performing times and also when your audience is most online. That is a specific Plann feature. But yeah, it's just depending on, it could be 5 p.m. Friday, for some businesses and 9 a.m. Monday for another.
Okay, from Janine, a focus on business operations means there's no time to do social. What gig businesses have arisen to do this for small business at a reasonable price?
I think, so, to talk about Plann as the tool, that's what it's supposed to be, an extension of your business. So, basically doing the strategy and education piece and making sure that you're posting with purpose, but it's not taking too much time. So once you set up, we actually have, and I might include this resource, you can set up a week's worth of posts in 30 minutes with intention. So thinking about the strategy behind it as well. So it doesn't have to take a whole heap of time, because I agree, there's so much asked of small business owners. So it's hard to keep up, and socials can be a constant drain.
All right, we've got 7 left. Let's see if we can do it. Reminder, if you pay for Instagram promotion, does the algorithm reduce your organic exposure?
No, in fact, it would be the opposite. They reward you for paying them.
Okay. I hate emails. What about SMS?
Not about you.
Great. All right, we'll leave it there. From Annie, a quick expose on reading the data and where to find it would be great, if possible, Mark. This is from an Airbnb operator.
Oh, man, that's such a big question. I don't even know where to start with that. A quick expose on reading the data and where to find it. Again, similar to the earlier question, it's not about, it's about what data, it's what is the question you're trying to ask, and then, trying to come up with the answer. It's probably a good place to start, is be really clear on what the question is. And a lot of people don't know what the question is, but again, if it's websites, Google Analytics is great. Instagram's got analytics tools, Facebook's got analytics tools, Google's got analytics tools. So I don't know if I can give a generic answer to that question. Sorry, it's a bit too broad.
Thanks for trying. What's the best way to reward customers without an established loyalty program?
I'm not a fan of loyalty programs as a general rule. There's a lot of data that says they actually don't work. It basically, your most loyal customers get rewarded, which you normally gives away some sort of points or margin, and your least loyal customers aren't motivated by them, is what the research says quite clearly. And there's quite a lot of very solid scientific. There's exceptions to that rule, but in general. Yeah, something I like is surprise and delight and creating a great experience. I had a chat with Pandora, as in the jewelry people, and they actually have a loyalty program running behind the scenes, but none of their customers are ever enrolled in it. And if they do surprise and delight stuff and all sorts of, they've actually got a very sophisticated loyalty program, just none of their customers are ever enrolled.
And I would say, rather than discounting, value add. So maybe it will be they get invited to an exclusive Facebook group where they get, extra help or information. Yeah.
All right.
James, the gin lovers group.
Yeah.
Exactly. Lucky last, can you give examples? I'm sure you've done this already, but quick summary of great content that's working these days, example videos, images, photos, customer testimonials, etc. What's your top 2, Mark and Karina?
All of the above. Videos are gaining more and more traction, which is fairly obvious. If it's in a social context, I generally find that very organic raw videos tend to perform really well. So rather than hiring a videographer, honestly, grab your iPhone and just film something. And I did a project last year with a company who were doing a couple $100 million a year, and they had all these fancy videos. Their best performing ones were done by someone in their bathroom with bad lighting. So yeah.
I agree with that. And video, the more authentic, the better. And that's the rise of stories as well. And putting paid budget behind that. And then even the old listicle, I think when we're looking at content opportunities and how you can do something different, maybe putting the content in a different format, people are still scanning content, digestible, and you can turn that into a flick through carousel as well. Carousels still perform really well on the grid, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
We did it. Thank you. That was fantastic. We got through the questions. Thank you so much, Mark and Karina, for your generosity today, all the time you put into your presentation and your candor with the questions as well. And thanks to all the founders for being so open in the discussions today. Jackie, Alex and James, thank you very much for your time and your vulnerability. And a reminder that next week is the last in our Reboot series. This event is on podcasts and books for business owners, everything you need to know. So please register if you want to attend, and then they'll share the link to the registrations in the chat box now. I just want to remind you as well that if you will have been emailed a survey, we've shared a link to it in the chat also. It's really important we get feedback to help the City of Sydney design its business recovery efforts, and also future programs like these. I'm sure you'll agree they're very worthwhile, so help us tailor them to your needs. I hope you enjoyed the webinar today. I certainly did. Amazing insights there from everyone. Thank you so much again to the City of Sydney for putting on these fabulous events for the business community. I'm Fleur Brown from the Australian Retailers Association. Thanks for joining us today, and Rebecca will be back next week. See you then.